Yes. In this article, which is called Learning for Legitimacy, the Gaza Flotilla case of meaningful learning in foreign policy strategic planning, I address a phenomenon of extreme relevance to contemporary international relations and to the subfield of foreign policy analysis in particular, which is the dynamic, constitutive role of international legitimacy considerations on the strategic planning of foreign and security policy. In this paper, I engage, on one hand, with theories of learning in foreign policy, and on the other, with theories of international legitimacy, trying to bridge the existing gap between them. This allowed me to provide a comprehensive analysis and with a longitudinal analytical perspective of how different actors adapt their strategic planning to the expected legitimation and delegitimation dynamics. Now, for this purpose and to fill this vacuum, I import David Ausubel's theorization on meaningful learning. This theoretical framework is highly prominent within the vast literature in educational psychology for the assessment of cognitively based learning processes. More specifically, Ausubel's theory helps to understand under what conditions pre-existent ideas enable, in a process of learning, to translate reception and internalization of knowledge into adaptation of conduct and practice. This first adaptation of Ausubel's meaningful learning framework to IR is therefore designed to apply to international political actors rather than individuals. It suggests three steps in making a learning task potentially meaningful. The first one is reception, the second one is discovery, and the third one is retention. For a more detailed understanding of the cognitive mechanisms that lie behind these phases, I build on Ausubel's notion of advanced organizers. Those are the subsuming categories that bridge the gap between the beliefs that learners already possess and the new meanings to be gained. Now, how to apply this empirically? Well, I rely on a phenomenological study of the so contested and controversial Gaza Flotilla case. This is a tragic incident which took place in May 2010 and which deepened the diplomatic crisis between Israel and Turkey until their official reconciliation in June 2016, while it worsened even more the relations between the different Israeli and Palestinian rulers. The article traces how Israeli authorities reacted to the crisis. More specifically, it analyzes to what extent the interpretations of the incident influence their strategic decisions in formulating future Israeli foreign and security policy. Drawing on testimonies of Israeli policymakers and the reports published by the multiple committees that examine the flotilla events, both national and international, official and non-official, explore the mechanisms behind Israel's learning process. In this way, the paper describes the development of the notion of the legitimation, as an advanced organizer among Israeli institutions, and the consequent implementation in numerous issue areas of strategic planning, whether diplomatic, military, communications, intelligence, technological, among others, of the calls to prioritize legitimacy considerations and develop more pertinent institutional practices. Given that the evidence supports the argument that since the Gaza Flotilla incident, significant changes have been made in Israel's foreign policy strategic planning as a result of that meaningful learning experience, I argue that the case can be therefore considered a paradigmatic example of legitimacy learning. So, what are the implications of this kind of study. I think that the main potential contribution of this article is embedded in its refreshing perspective to the current scholarly debate about the role of learning in foreign policy, decision-making, and strategic planning. The paper also fills a certain vacuum in the rich literature on international legitimacy by providing a systematic analysis of the dynamic effects of the struggles over legitimation as part of international conflicts. As a result, this study can serve to design a broader research agenda with a comparative perspective on how states or other international actors experience meaningful learning processes activated by the mechanisms of legitimation. So, in sum, I tend to believe that the article is of interest to a broad readership, including those interested in foreign policy analysis, of course, IR theory, conflict resolution, security studies, and well, in addition, of course, to Middle Eastern and Israel studies. The paper suggests a preliminary yet challenging research agenda. This importation of Ausubel's model to IR allows us to conduct comprehensive examinations of several potential cases of meaningful learning, meaningful legitimacy learning in global politics, potentially offering a wealth of practical lessons for both scholars and diplomacy practitioners. In this respect, I consider important to carry out, for example, further research about legitimacy learning on hard cases for the international legitimacy theories, such as Russia or China. I also have some ideas in mind regarding Latin America, and more specifically the case of Venezuela, the way in the Chavista regime reacted to the mass protests that have taken place there since 2014. Yet the project in which I am particularly interested in the short term, regarding, of course, the legitimacy learning issue, refers to the Arab Spring and the role of the Arab League. This is a subject that I have already researched last years, but in this working process paper, I try to implement the theorization of legitimacy learning to explain the change in the reaction of the Arab authorities, that is, from their passivity in the cases of Tunis and Egypt to their activism in the cases of Libya, Bahrain, Syria, among others. So if some readers are interested in one of these projects, or if they have other cases in mind that may fit the legitimacy learning model, or if they simply have some new ideas to improve these meaningful learning theories in IR, I am very willing to hear from them and, of course, collaborate as much as I can.